Hello Internet, my name is the Golden Stalfos, and today we're going to be talking about Boruto. Believe it. Um, so, first of all, I fully recognize why most Naruto fans are still sleeping on this. Um, you know, I was sleeping on this for a long time. I do understand that the original Naruto story was very dramatic and action heavy and poorly written, and a lot of fans want that. They want that back. They want to keep going back to it. I understand that. And, Boruto, at least at first, isn't like that at all. At the beginning, it's a slice of life anime set in the Naruto world, which I could understand completely why some uh, some people may think, nah, fuck that, you know. Uh, but there's a couple of things to consider there. One, Kishimoto is much better at writing slice of life than he is at writing dramatic action. His characters are finally coming to life on the page in a way that they weren't before. Um, he's giving all the characters time to grow and become interesting, and there are no characters in Boruto that have no development and are just completely uninteresting. There is no 1010, no Ino, no no character who just sits there in the background being the exact same forever. Every character gets development. All of the teams that graduated alongside Boruto have their own standalone episodes. A lot of the individual characters will have standalone episodes. There's entire arcs devoted to each member of Boruto's team, and how that affects the other teams. And there's just so much time and energy and care put into making sure that all of these characters matter and have their moment in the spotlight. And there's so many episodes where Boruto and his crew don't appear on screen until the last 2 seconds when the characters are recapping the events that just took place, and Boruto shows up to be like, hey guys, I'm still in the show. And yet those episodes can still be really compelling. There's some duds, sure, but the fact that you can have an entire standalone adventure about Choji's daughter is crazy. You couldn't have done that in Naruto. Kishimoto never did that in Naruto. None of his characters got the chance to breathe like that, to be unique like that. And they're so properly realized. Even the characters I initially hated, I now kind of love because of the development they've gotten through their standalone episodes and through their interactions in ensemble episodes. And so, if you were drawn to Naruto by seeing the fact that there's 300 different people on the cover art, and there could be, a bunch of interesting things happening with them, and all of them have cool, unique abilities, and blah, blah, blah. And then you were disappointed when the Naruto show was, all Naruto all the time. Fuck you, Neji, go die. You might like Boruto because it doesn't do that. But here's the thing. If you only cared about Naruto because of the action sequences, and I'll admit that was one of the main things that drew me in early on, then you still have a lot of reason to like Boruto. Now, I won't try to tell you that anything is as serious and grounded as the Land of Waves, because it's not. Nothing in Naruto has been like that for years. But But there are some amazing combat sequences. There are some amazing battles and like wide shots and things like that. There's, quite frankly, there's some stuff that just absolutely puts Shippuden into shame in terms of its action. Early on, like the second or third arc, Sarada, Sasuke and Sakura's daughter, has a standalone kind of arc where she goes on an adventure with Boruto's dad, Naruto, and Sasuke. And they, the three of them end up confronting this guy who claims to be an Uchiha, but he's actually an Orochimaru clone. And, well, it's complicated. But anyway, Sakura shows up and gets kidnapped because, of course, she fucking does. And as she's breaking out of being kidnapped, because she's not kid Sakura anymore, she's a fucking bamf with the 100 healings and everything. She gets a fight sequence against the big bad, and it is the most insane level of Sakuga I've seen in Naruto for years. Like, this makes the pain fight look like, I mean, they just put so much effort into it, and it's crazy. And this fight sequence, like, I'm not kidding, it looks a lot like the pain fight, and it's just so good. Oh man, it's so good. And let's say you don't care too much about the Sakuga, you care about the stakes, you care about how badass the action fight is from like the build up. Well, as you may have heard, several more of the Otsutsuki clan show up in this series, including some characters who weren't even in the Boruto film. Just more reasons why not to like that movie. But they all get some pretty incredible fight sequences. And of course they are the Otsutsuki, so they're pretty fucking powerful. Now, there is one where I think it's a little bit stupid. So the last one they fight happens during the time travel arc, which I'm sure you've seen memes of. And I won't really spoil anything of it, but basically it's Boruto, Sasuke, Jiraiya, and Naruto all working together, and between them they are able to create an attack that puts this guy down. Now, the power of teamwork is strong and everything, but let's be honest, Sasuke is the only person in this group who should be able to have any kind of interaction with an Otsutsuki clan member. And not, like, auto die. Naruto, like, you can make an argument, like, oh, well, he's drawing on the Nine Tails and blah, blah, blah. But, like, even with that, the Nine Tails chakra isn't that big. Like, I don't know. But the fight sequence itself is fucking amazing to watch, man. Like, it's so hype and so interesting and so, like, fun and really badass. And just now, where the story is right at the moment, they've begun to introduce the Neo Akatsuki. They're called Kara. That's with a K, not a G, which I think is not a very interesting name because, I mean, come on, you go from Akatsuki to Kara. That's so lame. I don't know, maybe it means something cool in Japanese, but it's just like, it sounds lame to me. And they just wear like regular black hoods, like, you know, and because the Akatsuki had these sick ass cloaks with red clouds and shit. And these guys are just like plain hoods and cloaks that would hide their identity. Like boring practical ninja shit. Come on. There aren't even really stylized cloaks. It's not like Organization 13 or anything. It's just a cloak. Ugh, lame. So there's that. But while their designs are uninteresting and their name is uninteresting, they have just been introduced, and they do seem to be a big threat. They have weird floating technology in their base, and they seem to be connected to the Otsutsuki in some way because they're connected to the mark on Boruto's hand, which he got from the Otsutsuki. And so it's pretty weird, honestly. I don't know where that's going, TBH. But in the most recent episode, they found a guy in a cave who's been infected with Hashirama cells, and in the same location where one of those Kara members went to. So they probably are involved in some deep shit, and we're probably going to see some pretty crazy monsters coming out of their ranks, because, well, so we know they do medical experimentation, and we know that this guy is having a horrible reaction to something they did to him, I don't know it's Hashirama cells yet because they haven't said, but he's twisting around in an environment covered in wood. He's got white skin and like unnatural white, and he's going crazy. His arms are all stretchy. So like, it's probably the Hashirama cells or white Zetsu. But then also earlier on, we found some white Zetsu in caves who had been like hiding there for years, and they were just like mutated super weapon versions that were really, really strong, like Kakazu level strong. And I'm comparing them to Kakazu because they have the same gimmick where they can use multiple things but from different heads. But if there's an organization out there who's connected to the Otsutsuki and who has genetic experimentation tools and has Hashirama cells and Zetsu cells, and these monster things already exist, they could be pumping out some pretty fucking insane human weapons before too much longer. And in fact, we've already seen another organization create some human weapons using Earth-style jutsu. So, like, if maybe they stole some tech from Inoki during that arc, then they could have like some really crazy human weapon shit going on. Might be really, really dangerous. In any case, I'm looking forward to see what Kishimoto has planned from here on. And honestly, I think if you are a fan of Naruto for any reason, you should check out Boruto. Maybe you won't get into the slice of life stuff right at the beginning, but later on there is more action to pay it off for you. Maybe maybe you only care about the main character and all that side stuff just, takes time away from you. But I think, honestly, if you just sit down and watch it, you will come to love those characters and you'll come to enjoy the world and be invested in the struggle. And I really hope we get to see more of all of this stuff as things develop. I do want to spend more time on training and development of powers, because at the moment everyone just kind of has the same powers they've had for the last couple of arcs, and they just keep using them the same way. But it's been long enough in the story that they can advance beyond where they were before, because yes, they started out way ahead of other genin from Naruto's generation, but they've already gone through the Chunin exams, and it's been almost a year since then, and Boruto in particular has had tons of time to train during that gap, and I feel like we haven't gotten a chance to see him do a whole lot of new things since then. One thing that's really cool that he's been doing since he visited the Land of Waves is, or no, not the Land of Waves, the village hidden in the mist, that's it. They both have to do with water. But anyway, he's figured out a way to combine his wind style and lightning style so that he can use wind style to make himself move really fast and lightning style to make his shuriken really dangerous. And it's basically just bootleg Raikiri or yeah, that's what it's called. No, that's not what it's called. Chidori. Raikiri is a different technique. Although I guess it's not that dissimilar from, because Raikiri is the lightning blade. He's using a lightning shuriken. I guess it's, whatever. Anyway, but he uses it the way you would use Chidori, where you just charge straight on with this fistful of lightning, and it looks super dope and super dangerous, and that has continued to get more and more development as time goes on, and so I'm hoping that some of this stuff will develop further into full new techniques, and he does have a lot of different techniques. People make fun of Naruto for using the same techniques forever, but that's mostly because of how much filler was in the anime, right? If you go through the story in terms of arcs, he pretty quickly goes from just using shadow clones to, combining that with a bunch of shuriken, to picking up the Rasengan, to picking up, well, actually he picks up summoning jutsu before Rasengan, and then there is a bit of a gap. He doesn't really learn anything new until after the time skip, but you have to keep in mind that timeline wise, he learns the Rasengan, then the battle happens where he faces off against Sasuke at the above the hospital, and then the Sasuke retrieval arc happens, right? He basically gets 2 days back home with the Rasengan before Sasuke leaves, and then he has to go chasing after him and shit. And so yeah, we only see him for one arc with the Rasengan, and then he goes to the time skip, and then We get like one arc after he comes back before he's like, no, I can't just rely on this Ninetales power. I need to train. And then he goes and trains and learns how to do the Rasen Shuriken just in time to kill Kakuzu. So, you know. And then from there, he's picking up new techniques literally every fucking 2 seconds. Like, you know, it's insane how many new techniques he picks up at that point. Sage mode, and then QB mode, and then, all the hundreds of different things he can do with those two combined, and then he picks up Sage of Six Paths mode and learns boil release and all of this other shit, and it's just like, Jesus, right? Boruto seems to be taking a more slow and steady approach, where at first he basically just knew like how to throw hands and shuriken, kind of, but not like amazingly well. And he knew that he could do nature transformations if he tried, but he didn't have any techniques for them. So there's that. And then he learned the Rasengan, which was the first like real technique he learned. He could do shadow clones, but much more limited than Naruto can. He can only do like 4 or 5, but they act more like people, which is weird. But like I said, then he picked up how to learn the Rasengan, and then he picked up how to learn, or how to use combo attacks with his nature transformations and with his shadow clones. And, he's just kind of been adding to his arsenal one little bit at a time. And it's like really cool to see that slow, natural progression as he like figures out, okay, I don't just need to do a wind technique. I need to use a wind technique to increase my speed, and then use a lightning technique to add power, right? Like he's slowly putting together these ideas and gaining more power by combining them and getting smarter at how he fights. So that's really cool to see that happen. And there's a lot more like cooperation amongst the teams, because like when we saw Naruto, basically the only time we saw any cooperation between Team Naruto was during the Land of Waves, and a little bit during the forest in the first part of the Chunin exams. But, one member or the other was unconscious for a large chunk of that story, so and then after that there's they get split up, but they do other things. Sasuke disappears, then they get replaced with Sai, and Sai's cool, but they don't really have a good group dynamic with him until many arcs into his adjournment of the group. And then the Fourth Great Ninja War starts, and the group just kind of splits up so Naruto can be the hero on his own, But in this, they actually are sticking with the idea of the 3-man crew, and there's never really a moment where it's all about Boruto, or, there's always something for Mitsuki and Sarada and Boruto. And sometimes Mitsuki or Sarada will take center stage. They have standalone episodes that Boruto is barely, if at all, involved in. They have, like I said, they each got their own entire arc devoted to them. And so it's just like really compelling to see all of this stuff. And because the other groups have just as much of an impact in the world, it can, sometimes the team dynamics will change a little bit. Like, because Boruto and Shikadai are friends, sometimes they form a squad more so than, anyone else. And it's really interesting to see things like that. Like when Mitsuki left and they had to, go after him, well, suddenly it was, Team Ina Shikacho and Team 7, well, what remained of Team 7, being led by Shikadai. And so it was like this 5-man band, basically. And so that was a really unique team dynamic because you had a bunch of things going on. I mean, first of all, you had Boruto and Shikadai's friendship. You had Shikadai's leadership. You had Sarada and Chocho's friendship. You had Inojin and Shikadai being like super close and chill with each other. But also like Inojin and Shikadai and Boruto were kind of a team before they started at the academy. And during the early days of the academy, they had a bunch of standalone episodes together. And so they have like this really cool like 3-man team dynamic going on between them. And so when you have that 5-man group and you have like some duos but then also some trios, right? Like, and it's really interesting to see all these characters interacting with each other and realizing that they don't always have to be bound to the rigid structure of the 3-man group, and that, real human people would form friendships and stuff on the side of their 3-man team, some of which might be even more valuable, or at least as valuable as the friendships they have within their 3-man group. And seeing that come to life is just very rewarding and fun. And I just, it's cool. There was recently an episode where Himawari went to the Ninja Academy to like, do a demo basically. And she hung out with 2 other characters. And the second I saw all 3 of them together, I was like, okay, that's a 3-man team. That's for sure. They are perfect together. And then you hear the boy in the group talk, and he's just like, bruh, that's just Naruto. Like, that's just Naruto. But with like a little bit of Sasuke's elitism. Like, that is perfect. Go for it. Do it. And, they're competing with each other throughout this episode, and he's like kind of a stuck-up asshole because he wants to be better than her, and he doesn't respect the fact that she doesn't know what she wants to do yet. And like the episode ends with her being like, I want to learn about other things I could maybe do besides ninjaing, but I did like ninjaing for a day. So maybe she won't be a ninja, but she had such a good dynamic with those other 2 characters. I kind of think that the plan is to make that a 3-man team too. And that would be cool. Also, Himawari is very well suited to being a ninja. She's got, the Uzumaki blood and the the eye thingies from her mom's side. And obviously Boruto is doing all right with that shit too. So I don't know. I think probably she'll make a good ninja. But that's another really cool aspect that we never got to explore in Naruto. Right? Like, Naruto kind of did that with Shikamaru, right? Because Shikamaru became his pupil who looked up to him. But it's very different seeing, like, not just the process of Boruto becoming a ninja, but then watching as the next, as someone who's in his same generation but still younger than him, also comes up in the ranks. Like, what path is she going to take? How is she going to be different from Boruto? And that's an interesting area to explore, that we couldn't explore with Naruto because he was an orphan. Um, in fact, everyone on his team was an orphan. Well, except for Sakura. She was just an only child. But, you know, um, I suppose technically Sasuke wasn't an only child, even though he was an orphan, but, you know, whatever. um, so yeah, I think if you've been sleeping on Boruto, now is the time to start watching. There's over 150 episodes. Production definitely slowed down because of COVID and everything, but, you know, we're still inching closer to 160. And so much has happened. It's so good. And, like, really, I don't want people to sleep on it because it's everything I always wished Naruto could have been. Well, not everything. I always wish Naruto could have stayed as the gritty, ultra realistic ninja clash where shuriken are seen as one of the deadliest weapons. But you know, that flew right out the window as soon as they introduced Gamabunta. Like, come on. No. There's no way you're taking down Gamabunta with a shuriken. That's not what this story is anymore. It's now a kaiju battle sequence. You know, played your hand a little early there. But, when it comes to, but everything besides that, right? Like, I always wanted Naruto to care more about the other characters in the world who seem to have more interesting stuff going on. Like, we never got episodes about Shino. And Shino is so cool. He has so many cool shit he can do. But he's just ignored. And the only time we ever get to see characters like him do anything is when literally everyone has gotten together for a fight sequence, right? Like, Shino got to have his moment during the Sound 4 battles, but I mean, he had his moment alongside other people, right? Like we got to see characters like that do stuff during the tuning exams when everyone was doing shit, but not, on their own time, in their own way, unless you're talking about filler episodes, which I hated. I hated all of the filler episodes. They're garbage. Come fucking fight me. I know there's some crazy people who try to say that, oh, well, this filler arc was actually good. Like, no, they're all garbage. They're all garbage. There's not a single filler arc in there that is Navarone. There's not even any filler arcs in there that are acceptable, right? Like, most filler is terrible, but I still kind of enjoy Arlia and the other world tournament. This is, kind of cool, but they're still dumb, they're still filler. And honestly, I wouldn't even say any of the Naruto filler reaches the dizzying heights of, kind of does something cool, like in Arlia, so, yeah. But Boruto doesn't have that problem. Boruto hasn't really had any filler yet. There also really haven't been any episodes bogged down by flashbacks yet. There were a couple of episodes where I thought, oh great, they're starting to do some flashbacks. Soon it will be back to the fuck storm it once was. But they kept it mild. It was only one or two. It didn't take up a huge chunk of the episode. They did seem largely unnecessary to me because I was binge watching at the time, but, maybe someone who was watching week to week would actually appreciate those flashbacks. I'm not sure. In any case, they didn't ruin the episodes for me, and they still haven't appeared very frequently. I think probably in 150 episodes, there have been less than 20 flashback sequences, which is like huge, I mean, because Naruto was having flashbacks by episode 3, right? Like they had flashbacks inside of flashbacks During the Sasuke retrieval arc, there were entire episodes that were flashbacks. Just ugh, garbage, complete garbage. But I haven't seen any of that in Boruto. It's no fluff, just character, world, action. And part of me hates that these characters are as powerful and competent as they are despite being really, really young. Every single person in Naruto's crew, or in Boruto's generation, would absolutely curb stomp anyone from the Konoha 11. Any one of them from part 1. Even most of them from Shippuden, right? Or early Shippuden. But while this is true, I'd like to take into consideration that these characters aren't supposed to be scaled against characters from Naruto Part 1. They're supposed to be scaled against their current sensei, right? Naruto couldn't compete with Kakashi in the same way that Boruto can't compete with Naruto, right? And it's by about the same margin, or percentage. And I think that's the important takeaway, right? These characters are good, but they're not, they're still obviously left with room to grow. And it's very clear that they're being shown in comparison to the people who are currently at the top, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to have characters, like Part 1 Naruto, who think shuriken are the deadliest shit in the world, palling around with, you can't have characters like that hanging out with Naruto and Sasuke and then, doing anything, right? Because, yes, the Boruto characters are not, running the show when it comes to any of the fights that actually require Naruto or Sasuke to step in, but they are helping, right? And a character, like Naruto from the Land of Waves, who can barely focus chakra in his legs, and only just barely understands how to do some tricks with a shadow clone. That character, that level of character, just would not be able to compete or even, make a difference in a fight where Naruto or Sasuke are getting involved. And so, of course, you have to raise the power of the other characters so that they can seem useful, right? You can't just have Naruto and Sasuke do everything because it's about the next generation rising up to meet the challenges, And Naruto has always had a big theme about, the generations over, one overcoming the previous one, inheriting the will and all that stuff. So thematically, while from a world building stance it doesn't work, from a thematic writing stance it makes perfect sense that these characters would be this powerful. And realistically, even though they are very powerful, they're never really played as stupidly OP, They're always faced up against obstacles that make them look as weak as we expect Genin to look, So that is how I would say it. I would say that, it works. It works pretty well. So I think any problem you have with Boruto is probably just because you're not meeting it on its own terms. Because, it is a good story. It does have interesting characters. It does have a good world, And I think there's definitely some worthwhile things about it, no matter what kind of Naruto fan you are. And you can definitely find some really interesting stuff to love about it. And also, for anyone who's thinking Boruto is overpowered, just remember Part 1 Naruto was an absolute beast. Okay? He could dodge light speed attacks from Haku's mirror. He could he could summon Gamabunta. He could throw hands with another Jinchuriki that actually had full control over his, you know, transformations and shit. You know, he learned an S rank jutsu in like a month just because he felt like it, and then proceeded to join in a fight with 3 Sannin, all of whom were Kage level, wherein they all summoned their own, incredibly huge monsters. And not to mention the fact that what's his face, Kabuto? That's his name. Kabuto was there, and everyone kept being like, dude, this guy's as strong as Kakashi. We have to watch out for him. And so, the fact that Naruto was able to even stand up and fight against characters like that, I mean, it's ridiculous. And then obviously after that, he fought with Sasuke pretty much evenly, even though Sasuke had a stage 2 curse mark, which is basically Sage mode, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to stress this enough, but Sasuke was basically using Sage mode in that fight, and Naruto was able to keep pace and damage him, and like ultimately Naruto lost, but not by much. Like they both got knocked out by that big clash at the end, and Sasuke just got up first. So uh, it's crazy to me when people say like, no, Boruto's too OP. He shouldn't be able to do this shit, because like the shit he does isn't that great when you compare it to what Naruto was doing at his age. So yeah. So all things considered, I think it's pretty good. Um, and like the fact that Mitsuki has Sage mode isn't really that crazy, because Sasuke did, you know? Um, I mean, essentially through the curse mark. But yeah, I think people give the show more shit than it deserves, because it didn't immediately live up to expectations, and they aren't willing to meet it on its own terms and figure out, see all the places where it succeeds now. And I think after 157 episodes, I am really, truly loving it, and I cannot recommend it enough. So please stop sleeping on Boruto. Give it a watch. It is totally, totally worth your time. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next life. Laters. Okay, end card time. I'm supposed to tell you to like, comment, subscribe, all that stupid YouTube shit. There's a bell thingy, whatever. I have all the social media stuff: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Mostly I use Facebook and Twitter to tell you about my Twitch and YouTube uploads. I've got a Patreon, but Patreon is one of those things where people who can afford to throw away money give money to people who can't. And so if you can't afford to throw away money, then you shouldn't be doing that. And if you can afford to throw away money, consider charities. There's a pandemic, there's global warming, there's millions of people in the world who don't have toilets. which is just awful. So I've linked a few charities in the description down below in case you're interested in that. And if you can't donate money to a charity, consider donating some of your time, because that's also very useful. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.